before we get there, back to our friend Greenleaf. The terminology that we're so used to has an origin. Things like community service, you heard of that? Military service, customer service. Where'd that all come from? Back from Greenleaf. Those are terms that we use all the time now and don't realize the association that it had with servant leadership. Some of the books that he wrote, The Servant as Religious Leader, Seminary as Servant, Teacher as Servant, Spirituality as Leadership, The Servant as Leader, On Becoming a Servant Leader, Seeker and Servant, The Power of Servant Leadership, and The Institution as Servant. And one of the things that he tried to argue very strongly was that to try to keep away from one strong leader and to have a first among equals, so have egalitarian type leadership style. That's what he was arguing. He feels that that's stronger than having one person in there. Okay. Into your, what were your, let's just do one. Which was your highest score? Which quadrant was your highest score on here? Which was your highest? Let's start with Grace. What was your highest score? Yeah, which quadrant? The names might be a little different, but let's see. Yeah.
The name is different. Right?
Yeah, the same. It's the same quadrant. Yeah. What was your?
Mine is enabling, which means
which one?
supporting.
Which one?
Enabling.
Your top. You're enabling. Okay. She's in the yellow.
And then
And Tomoko, Tomoko was yours. What was your highest one?
So white support. Yeah, it's really, it's very.
Which one?
Exhorting.
Exhorting. Oh, she's down there. Oh, okay. Susanna, where are you at?
Same, enabling, yellow.
You're yellow. You're yellow. Where are you at, Seth? Okay, let's pay attention.
I thought it was supposed to add up to 20, but I got off got a 24.
Which was your highest in the
Yellow.
Yellow. Okay. Where are you at? Head. What was your highest? Just what color? I mean, what? Just point the color out. So the names might be a little different there.
Names are different.
Yeah. Which one?
Delegating.
So you're delegating. Blue? Ah, there's the first one in the blue then. Where are you at?
Delegating, I guess.
So you're another blue. 2 blues in a row. You guys copied. John. Supporting. There we go. There's another yellow. Yellow's going to win here. Where? Which one? What color?
Directing.
So that's 2 in directing then. 2 of them. There's you 2 are. Okay, and where are you at?
I'm in the direction.
In directing. 3 directors. All right, look at that. That's rare to have that many in the directing side. But nobody had any green, huh? In the coaching? Nobody. No coaches in this class, man. You either got directors or no.
Like directing and supporting are really close together.
Okay, they're close. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we usually
Me
ask for
too.
which are your 2, but for just doing it for 1. All right. So let's go down here. Put your hands up. Where's our directors? These 2, 3. So we got 3. Fred, you up? Oh. Oh, here we go. Oh, okay. So we got. How many got directors? Put your hands up. If that's the highest. Tomoko, you directing. Put your hand up. Let's see. Where were you? You were director?
No.
No, you weren't. Okay. So we have 3. All right. Coaching, zip. How about having the yellow, supporting, enabling? 2, 4, yeah, that's going to win. And the delegating? Only 2, okay. 2, okay. That's pretty good. Usually, for those who take it in the West, the highest tends to be the yellow, the enabling or the supporting. And then the second one will go to delegating, down in the blue. Those 2 are usually the highest, which says what? That's the test instrument is saying that's your preferred, okay, if there's an issue, that's where you will tend to go to try to solve that issue. Either supporting through a supporting role or through a delegating role. That's what the test instrument is designed to look at. That's your style preference is what they're saying. You don't agree?
The case studies here are so context particular.
Yeah, yeah.
That it really,
Right.
if anyone were to describe my leadership, it would not be delegating.
What would it be?
Well, I'm split between the delegating, supporting, and coaching almost. It's almost the same.
Almost the same on all 3? Yeah. Yeah.
But, no. But these are obviously, I mean, even the terminology that they use in those leadership positions,
Yeah.
you know, it's assistant pastor. So this is a typical, you know, I mean, how many churches in the world have assistant pastors?
Yeah.
You know, 3 million churches in the world. This is obviously a suburban, large church.
It's a seminarian
Yeah.
tool. Yeah. Yeah.
That's actually, that's troublesome, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
But it would still define you.
I don't know. I mean, sure. I guess my effectiveness score was horrible. But
Oh, that one.
I guess it's true then. I
Yeah.
guess it's true.
I don't worry about the effectiveness. I never have agreed with that one, but yeah. So would they define, if yours were all 3 pretty close, that's how people would define you? Basically, anyway?
I've probably moved from directing to coaching a little bit more
Uh-huh.
over the years.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
I got 2 in directing.
Okay.
It's pretty low. I sensed that when I was taking it. And I was like, well, it really depends on where I'm at. Because in this type of context, it's what it seems to be the cultural context I'm looking at, I'm picturing as I'm writing this, I probably would do more. I probably would do exactly what I just scored.
Sure,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
In this particular context.
Yeah, in that context, yeah, yeah.
Like I was thinking, sorry, I was thinking the same thing because like on my coaching, I'm actually minus, which is because I do so much coaching at work. I like training people all the time.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Yeah.
let's go with
It didn't work then. No, yeah, yeah. And that's why we need one for nursing and one for, we need one for each one of those, yeah. That's why the test instrument's hard because it's so geared to seminarians. That's who it was designed for.
My question is, are these situational? Because there are situations where you need coaching, there are situations that,
Yeah,
so that's another thing that was,
yeah. And that's the argument. What they're saying in that test instrument, let me jump way ahead here. See if we can find it right here. What they're saying in that we each have 1 or 2 that's really our comfort zone. If there's something that comes up and there's an issue, that we will tend to revert into that mode to solve the problem. That's the argument in the test instrument, and that's the argument in situational leadership. And what they're saying then too, that we have to, you got to know where your follower is on this. That was one of the things, remember in the 70s, they started pushing into the follower side now. Where is the follower in relation to the issue at the moment? Okay, let me go back and let's illustrate this a little bit here. Let's go back. I'll put both terms in there so you can follow them. Let's say you have a new believer who wants to do evangelism, wants to tell his friends what's going on here. And to get into the developmental level that he has, that's that one, this one here, that's on the, you have 4 levels they're saying. And each of those levels will require then a different type of leadership style, is what they're saying. So if let's put the new believer in, he's very willing to do it, evangelism, but he's unable to do it because he doesn't really know how to do it. So in that case, if, go back here then, in that case, if he is up here, we need to start in his comfort zone, not your comfort zone. For example, this was the dominant comfort zone. We would tend to start in this one. And we tend to assume that he's able, but he's just unwilling. No, he's unable to do it because he doesn't know what to do. So what does he need? He doesn't need just enabling or supporting role. Go do it, you can handle it. What does he need? He needs your role as a nurse to go in there, do the coaching, right? And the modeling to show him how to do it. Show her how to do it. So the idea is that, if I can get back to my thing here, where'd that go? This one here. So you got to know what your comfort zone is, that you have your preference. 1 or 2. Most likely it'll be 2 that are pretty close together. But you have to determine where they are in this. Okay, he needs coaching. She needs coaching at this point. New believer, willing to do it, just don't know how to do it. Okay, so now you what? You get out of your comfort zone, move over into the coaching, and you become a coach.
Sure.
Then hopefully what? That person will move over into the yellow or down into the red again. If I can get back to this one. The idea is what? To get them over here where they're empowered, they can do it on their own. That's the idea.
It's not the followers, well, it's more of the followers' perceptions that you deal with.
Yeah.
Or the followers'
Yeah.
expectations.
Yeah.
Because expectations has everything to do with trust.
Mm-hmm.
So if the, expectations have everything to do with culture, transition, journeys or transition shock.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe, I think in this context, the way I'm picturing this, the situations is that most people would want to be, most people want a little more self-autonomous, more self-directed, individualistic.
Yeah.
In other words.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering if, this, that's why I kind of, tend to put more empowering types of leadership answers down. You know what I'm saying?
And we will, because being from the West, that is
Right.
considered what? That's the good leadership role.
Right.
The empowering side, the enabling side. So now you're getting into your cross-cultural settings of the test instrument. Test instrument, and most of these test instruments, that's what we have to realize, they are designed for the West. So in other societies, maybe the exemplar role would be to what? Be directing. Be directing. Yeah. And so that's where you'd have to look at it from both cultural sides of it then. What is considered a good leadership style? For the West, we'll say you empower. Okay, basically all I've said so far using even the theory has all come from the West. And now we want to start challenging that and looking at what it says.
But is it number 4 the ideal, position for an organization? I mean, you want people who are willing and are able.
Well, yeah,
They
yeah.
come when they're able and willing, but ultimately, I think an
Yeah.
organization would want people are able and willing. So for me, I saw them as a progression.
Yeah.
This is where they begin, but this is where they ought to be.
Yeah. And that is, and for Hershey and Blanchard, that's the ultimate goal. And for an organization, that's where you want. Because if they're able and willing to do it, then guess what? The tasks get done, people are happy in the relationship. It's a win-win situation. Yeah.
That seems like a transcultural, you can apply that transcultural too, because if you have able-willing people, you can still be in a directing
Yeah.
position. They're going to be able to carry out their job a lot
Mhm.
better and a lot,
Yeah.
whatever better needs in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Will there be crisscrossing? Yeah. You're going to have them in every, even Timothy. Look at Paul's, you remember when Timothy was, he'd already been doing a lot of work of an apostle, going to these various churches and helping them and so forth and so forth. And so he gets burned or whatever. And pretty soon Paul's writing to him and it says, get the fire going again. So, you know, Paul almost goes into a directive role with somebody like a Timothy, right? Who's already a very experienced veteran, but he hits a certain place, and we all hit those places, and we actually need somebody that's going to be very directive to us.
Or going into a situation like these 20 situations here, and assuming that the followers are not able and not willing, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah.
This the assumption of a leader, that the followers are not willing and not able.
Yeah.
I usually try to approach a situation with a more, you know, maybe a quadrant 4 type attitude, because I want to see what these guys can do. These people, you know, I have to, you know, and eventually to choose the precious out of the mess.
Yeah.
Like that quote you gave yesterday.
Yeah.
To be able to see that first before I'm able to get into more directing
Mm-hmm.
mode or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I think one of the things that this model still puts like the answers in the leader. It almost does that, you know. It still hasn't, and you have to remember when this came out. So but it's still very popular today. But it still probably doesn't give the follower enough credit. And but the idea I like of it is that, you know, whether you agree with the test instrument or not, if we could get it for each case, that would be a lot more helpful. But the idea is that we do have preferences on how to solve problems out of one of these 4 roles here. And the follower also has preferences for where they are. And that we have to then match, and their start point, servanthood would say, you go to where they are, you don't make them come to where you are. That's what servanthood would say. And so if we can at least get that much out of the test instrument, then we can find that to be helpful. But I would just kick up the followership ability to make a little more better decisions and actually provide some leadership direction as well in there. But that wasn't, at that point in history, we weren't there yet.
Like 1990, is that it?
70s, well, in this,
70s?
yeah, 80s, yeah. Yeah, so, but I mean, they're still reprinting this book, okay? You know, so it's a very popular model that's out there. Very popular.
Have they updated the situations a little bit?
Oh, that's test instrument. Yeah, well, that's just the home one. Yeah.
Can you explain the number 3? If somebody is unwilling, how would enabling and supporting help him?
What was the question?
Number 3.
Yeah.
If he's unwilling, if or she is unwilling,
Yeah.
how would enabling and supporting help in such situation?
And that'd be like the Timothy case study, where he's burned out, he's despondent, he's Something's happened. And so can he do what he needs to do? Yeah, he's got the gifts. He's proved himself over the years. So Paul doesn't actually come into that. I think Paul actually goes back to the directing role and kicks him a little bit in the seat and says, gets that fire going again in you and do it.
He's not saying absolutely unwilling, but more like the spirit is willing, but the flesh is being type of unwilling.
Yeah, in that sense.
In that sense, that there is something that needs to ignite the fire
Yeah.
again, you know, or to fan the flame again.
Because the way I was reading, the unwillingness is just the stubbornness that I'll not do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it's referring to.
Yeah.
The willing, unwilling is referring to whether a person at that moment has the initiative to go on with the plan.
there you go.
Is this about because I was looking at the internal, disposition of the person, the
Mhm.
willingness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's initiative issue, not stubbornness.
Okay.
Yeah.
If someone's not stubborn, can't do anything.
Mhm. By the developmental level, they're just looking at two areas: the person's competence and his commitment.
Okay.
Yeah, those two areas. That's what they're in the test instrument. Now, we would take that a little further beyond that, competence being tasks, knowledge, and skills, experience, transferable skills that the person has to be able to do something. Commitment, what's the motivation, the confidence level. We would probably add, because of the cultural dynamics here, we'd have to look at the types of leadership, the types of followerships, all that type of stuff. Bring in the cultural aspect of here. Are we talking egalitarian here? Or are we talking hierarchy? What type of leadership structure is in place here? And then the whole character issue here, the ethics and the morals, we would bring that into play in this as well. Even the chemistry, how does it fit the organization itself?
I don't know whether I should pose this question here or wait a little.
Pose it, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm trying to battle between my African and the Western mindset.
Yeah, good.
Because I see the leadership here, they're looking at leadership in the context of what people are going to do, the result.
Yeah,
But in an Ugandan setting, if I think like a villager, you begin with the community first, the well-being of the community.
there's your collectivism.
It is not so much about what we're going to do,
Yeah,
but our being
yeah,
would be the hallmark of leadership.
yeah.
So I don't know how that
Yeah.
would be handled, because we would be so much concerned about being rather than doing.
Yeah.
And in this case, I see the emphasis is so much on doing.
The doing. This is the task, is the result.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you want the collective nature to be able to be expressed here. Yeah.
Every single of these
The
situations,
relationships.
they're trying to do something.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get a task done.
Yeah.
Or, using a position, using a certain leveraging of the positions of the task.
Yeah.
They're using that to get something done. The senior pastor got me away from this task. How am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to do this? What would a leader do?
Yeah.
But what if we're in a culture where the results are thought of as the relationships itself?
Mm-hmm.
The result is the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and none other than the relationships. Especially in a more, in a less utilitarian culture, capitalistic culture. Less.
How would we change that terminology, the unable versus, let's go to the word, unable versus unwilling, to put it in the relational side of it? Would that change?
Because in that context, the willingness its meaning would change.
Uh-huh.
In that context.
There we go, yeah. What would you put in replacement of that?
I mean, even if I left it, but what people understand, because in that context,
Yeah.
it would be behavior
Yeah, yeah.
rather than competence.
Uh-huh.
or commitment, just the behavior.
Yeah.
And this would be in relation to what they understand a human being to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Because if I looked at a church in a Christian context, in my context, I think people are more concerned about who they're becoming
Okay.
rather than what they're doing.
What they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I emphasize more on what they're going to do, there would be some dissonance, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been struggling
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you catch that?
Yeah. It's very different than anything I've ever been.
Yeah, I know. It's yeah. That's why I love these classes where we have that we can look at it from here's a Ugandan perspective, and bring in the collectivist society.
But how would you like in a isn't a more Asian it's collective, but it's harmony.
Yeah.
So how do you?
Uh-huh.
It's almost like a mix between the two. You can get something done, right? But how are you going to maintain that harmony?
Yeah.
Harmony is more important than maybe getting them to actually do something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just a question. What would
Yeah.
it look like in the Asian context?
Yeah. Results and relationships. This will emphasize results. Somehow we have to emphasize relationships. Mm-hmm. That's the harmony side of it, and the community side of it, the unity side of it, bringing all that into play. Mm-hmm. So somebody needs to design another test instrument. That will bring that into play.
So in Uganda, from what you're saying, when the church is looking for a pastor, they're most primarily explicitly concerned about his character? Rather
Well,
than,
I think there's tension.
yeah.
The relational aspect is not expressed.
Yeah.
And because we're in this modern, they are actually looking for somebody who can do something, but the underlying that is the relationship.
Yeah.
If the relationship is lacking, regardless of what we are doing,
Yeah.
you know, people are not satisfied. And because this has lacked a voice, the relational aspect,
Uh-huh.
because of modernity. So this is what I see too.
I see.
Yeah.
Whereas here, compared to that,
Uh-huh.
churches are more prone to hiring a pastor, for example, who has proven track record. of
Yes,
results.
result. It is the result.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even if his character might be a little suspect in relationship context.
Yeah. It's good to twist your thinking a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, even if we point it in a similar terminology, say, this person must have good sound doctrine.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Uh-huh.
So in my brother's context here,
Huh.
doctrine is for the purpose of relationship.
Yeah.
They
Community.
They won't even think of the dichotomy between vertical and horizontal relationships. This is all together.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
This is a two.
Yeah.
This is not a montu. This, that's the God, man, Jesus Christ. It's much more circular. Whereas we're thinking, okay, what are the
Very.
horizontal aspects of
Yeah.
this doctrine? What are the vertical
Uh-huh.
aspects of it? It's completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually spoke in chapel here about that because of we're dichotomizing. I feel like we're dichotomizing from the West a lot of the very strange things. I actually talk about it, but it's not that that's bad either necessarily.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
it does. We're trying to reach a point where we're valuing relationships and
Yeah.
mission, etc.
Yeah.
Together in tension.
Yeah.
Not altogether bad. It's just it's
Yeah.
different. But sometimes there's a more holistic and harmonious way to think about it.
Yeah.
I think in the church context, it will put a lot of emphasis on what people are doing out there other than discipleship.
There we go. Yeah.
So, as long as these are things we're doing, but not actually people growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So the focus is not people growing, but the focus is what people are doing.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so that's what's been struggling with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a rightful struggle. Very rightful. I like that. If we could get away from that dichotomy. I mean, you want both of them. You want results, yeah. I mean, the Bible talks about results, right? But it also talks probably more about the communal aspect of the maturity level. Yeah, getting results, yeah. But there's also that strong emphasis on community, which we'll tend to miss that on the west side. So how can community help us strengthen our understanding of Scripture, and how can results help communal people understand that side of it? See, that to me is where when you bring both of those together, then that has the potential of making us both stronger and more, have a wider grasp of who God is and what the plan is and the whole thing. If we can do that. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting little test instrument. I think the concepts, once again, we'll just review those quick and then move on. But know that we do have preferences for where we start to handle issues and problems when they surface. There is a comfort zone. And what they're saying is the follower is in a particular zone. We really should be headed to that zone and start where they are. You might, and match that your style with the follower's style, and then modify your style according to the follower's progress. So the ideal would be to move them around to where they are empowered, where they are, that's the maturity level where they are able to do that. But hopefully we can add the communal aspect to that, then we've really got something. We'll have results and relationships if that can come into there. But I think one of the things you have to realize too, that the progression is not necessarily just nicely going around and down, and ending up in the whatever color that was, green on that side. That it can jump all over the place, depending on what's going on. Which says what? Then any community is not in a static position. So, and any individual is not in a static position. So we have to, that's where the listening comes in, I think. And being able to start where they are and walk in there. And you help carry their bucket.
Can you tell me what you mean by national empowerment?
Maximize national empowerment. If you're working in a cross-cultural setting, whoever the local people there, the indigenous people,
Okay.
from that perspective. Yeah. But definitely it is task focused, and that's where we have to expand its understanding. And that's what we want to do. That's why I'm, almost any test instrument, that's why I'm really quite afraid of them. And I think you have to realize there are the cross-cultural components that are probably not going to be in place there. You got to identify what those are, and then recognize that the test instrument is limited in what it can tell us. It can be instructive, it can give us some good ideas, but it's not going to be perfect. Never is going to be there. Okay, let's go into followership a little bit. And before we get to your test instrument, let's go back to our friend, the young lady who wrote The Allure of Toxic Leaders. And she asked the question, why do followers seek leaders? And once again, we'll have to ask, how cross-cultural is this? Okay, because she is definitely writing for a Western audience. So we'll see if this goes, if we want to go beyond this. She will say, there are a number of needs that a follower has. And that's why they follow certain people. One of them, they're looking for a parental figure. They're looking for security. They're looking for certainty. They want to feel like they're needed, wanted, special. And they want to feel like they're part of a group, part of a community. That they're not just isolated, lonely little people out here in the middle of nowhere, but they belong to a group. How would you react to that in relation to the cross-cultural side? Because she is writing from a Western perspective. Will it take us into Asia? Will it take us into Africa? What do you think? What would you change?
Those first two definitely resonate really well with Eastern Hemisphere, I believe.
Okay.
The third one, maybe not so much.
The feeling of special. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I don't know. Yeah, I agree. I'm just wondering if any Asians don't want to feel special. I think we all do. But at the same time.
Individually or collectively?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Or both.
There's more contextual pride, right? There's
Oh,
more
okay.
contextual-
Yeah.
There's more contextual reason for being.
Yeah.
And there's more contextual arrogance at the same time.
Okay.
So the nationalism
Ah.
is different, right? The
Yeah.
nationalism looks different in China and Brazil than it does here.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, the question for this, I don't know the book. I'm wondering if she goes into psychology of the individual as far as the need, the perceived need for a parental figure or security. Because in Asia there would be much more of a contextual reason.
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
In high context cultures, and so so a lot of it has to do with our own history, and especially our recent history.
Uh-huh.
In the past 100 years.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I mean, these are all reasons, I think, in many different cultures.
What would you add to that? If we'll just say you did accept all those, but what would you add to that?
The need for connection.
Connection to what? To
Well, they're talking about destructive leadership, right? So.
Mhm. Yeah.
Usually, abused followers follow abusive leaders.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's, or the next generation of leaders are coming from abused followers
Huh.
who only have that generation's
Yeah.
leadership as
Yeah.
an example,
As a model.
as a model.
Mm-hmm.
That's true in China and Africa.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, I don't know. They need to imitate. They have a need to imitate people. They need to emulate. They need somebody to emulate.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting too, though, like her book. What kind of application does it have in a place like Italy, which is even according to Italian friends, I mean, it's the mafia that runs it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and they kind of have that, clan like ideal.
Uh-huh.
These clans, and they're all striving for their own. Don't trust anyone. I'm reading for culture and transformation, change across cultures. It's talking about.
Okay.
There's a guy, and he asks his son to jump down from the roof, or I don't know what it was, but it's like jump, and then he didn't catch him. It's like, don't ever trust anyone. Early age,
Uh-huh.
So, and we were talking about the culture breeds that sort of, whether it's economic system, political system, or whatever it is. And so, what does that mean? Corrupt
Yeah.
country is corrupt, and I mean that's kind of like the system they're surviving on. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now I guess it depends on what you mean by survive as well. But
Yeah. 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 Good. What would you say, David?
Well, I think I can see all of those apply in one way or the other. But, the typical African, which may not even be applying today in
Yeah.
practical sense. Because originally, leadership and people were communal and reciprocal
Yeah.
ideas. Because a leader was an embodiment of people's aspirations. So the leader must learn what people want and represent and project
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the other hand, people also invest in the leader the values that their society stand for.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was a reciprocal,
Mm-hmm.
but with the coming of modernity, that power was usurped from the people. And it was now in this government. So the people became powerless, and everything was now in the hands of the government. So they're like the benefactors of the people. So that invited it.
Yeah.
And I think people are beginning to question that. Is that really okay? I think that's where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
People are beginning to question that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we want what was ours to come back.
But come back.
But they don't have a model.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have how to do that.
Hmm.
So that's what I was saying. I see, like for example, if you look at tribalism today, why is tribalism such a big factor?
Yeah.
Because the leaders have discovered that's what people want, and they're riding on it.
Uh-huh.
But they don't tell the people. They just take advantage of it.
Uh-huh.
Because people look at themselves as we are these people.
Uh-huh.
And if you want to get to them, use that. But for your own end.
For your own end. Oh, man.
So that's what I see. But originally, leaders used to serve people. The real African chief. His goal
So there was a model.
Yeah. The goal was
Yeah.
the interest of the people.
Yeah.
He would die for his people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But today, leader is a position of privilege.
Mm-hmm.
But before it was a position of service. Like for example, this is at home. The parent would be the last to eat. The children must eat
Interesting.
first.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's not Koreans.
Ah.
So that has changed. And that was manifested in the leadership at higher level. So this is what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
And this is what people are struggling with, but it's not been articulated well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so this will help in articulating, going
Right.
back and people see, because if you look at all the communities, leadership was not, even the monarchies, they were not permanent. People changed them many times.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like how long? A year? 2 years? 4 years?
Because like if I look at the Kikuyus, it has become a permanent interval of about one generation.
A generation.
Yeah,
There you
then
go.
the next,
Yeah.
you kick
Then-
them, bring in new people, even women.
Yeah.
And that was evolving.
Uh-huh.
Like the Baganda, this is one of the biggest tribes in Uganda. Power, first of all began in the hands of the king.
Uh-huh.
But the king realized that in order for him to consolidate power, he had to give power to the local chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
So the local chiefs were the one exercising the power.
Mhm.
And the local chiefs were also, their power was invested in the people. So it was a well choreographed
Wow.
thing. But people's voices were heard. And the Kabaka, people could do anything for the king, but that was the value of the people.
Wow.
So it is very complicated.
So one of your chapters in your dissertation has to be looking back at some of the historical models that were there.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Has to include. So there is a positive model there at one point. We just have lost it, but there was one there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's some chapters there for you, man.
Yeah, because I get a little
Uh-huh.
bit disconnected
Yeah,
when the focus of leadership becomes result.
yeah,
And that because I was in a church context whereby this church says the end is what we're becoming, but the practice is the result.
uh-huh,
And it messes up the whole thing.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah, in other words, a purpose-driven church is problematic. It really is.
Yeah,
It really is because of what you just
Yeah.
said. Because it is looking towards the end result in many ways.
Uh-huh.
And, by and large.
yeah. Interesting. That's going to be a good dissertation. She added some other things there, the fear side of it. See how the fear side correlates too with the Asian and the African side here. Ostracism, isolationism, social death, personal powerlessness. Isolation would fit, wouldn't it, in Africa and even in Asia?
That's good.
When you don't want to be isolated, right? I mean, that gets into the honor shame thing, which is collective versus individual to a great extent. So, maybe the personal powerlessness. How does that fit in the Asian context? Well, it depends on how you'd put it in there. Social death. That's got to fly in Asia. You don't want that. You can't handle that. Why? Because that's that's the antithesis of a community.
Well, in traditional, Ubuntu cultures, that personal power and powerlessness happens when someone else strips, is either strips you of your power
Yeah.
or is not doing well themselves.
Right.
Because my personal force or power or glory or honor is diminished when someone else is doing bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's a communal.
Yeah.
That's not only communal, but that's actual individual way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So my own force is stripped away from me if someone else's, my neighbor is not doing well, and if I'm commanded to love my neighbor, eventually that power comes back to me.
Mm.
That force comes back to me, and therefore there's a fear of powerlessness, but there's just as much of a fear for a powerlessness of the other.
Yeah.
And that's understandable if we're all functioning as one, as a cohesive unit.
Yeah.
I know. America is nationally speaking preferred isolationism over the years.
Mm-hmm.
We've preferred it. We've looked upon it as something positive over the years. So that's different. But that's different than most other, even European countries. So.
Okay, that's good discussion, really good discussion. That's why we want to take that stuff and just look at it from multiple perspectives here to see what we can learn and see what we need to add to make it more complete. All right, let's see if we got any followers in this group here. Where were you? What was your predominant followership style preference? Then we'll start asking the same questions. All right, Grace, where were you? What kind of follower were you?
want to be exemplary followers.
No, not what you want to be. What? And what if the exemplar is in the wrong place? Then you don't want to be there. What was your highest one, or where did you come in?
Actually, I conformist, yes, people.
Which one? Down here?
Yeah.
Where'd it go here? Oh, my light's not working. So you're a conformist, Demoko?
Yes.
Conformist. So we have two conformists. Suzanne?
Yeah,
Same? Three? Are you guys all copying what's going on here?
Asian culture.
This is the Asian conspiracy here.
Lead of us, just lead it. So we just yes.
Oh, where are you guys?
I was in the upper right-hand corner quadrant, but only barely.
Barely in there. Let me get a thing here. See if we can find one that works here. Okay, where? Someone here?
Yeah, but closer to that line.
More in there? Higher, lower?
Go lower, and a little to the right. Right there, yeah.
All right, right there. That's where we got. All right, Seth, where are you at?
I was like 3/4 the way up and about halfway to the right.
Somewhere there?
About
Oh, my thing's dying. And where are you at?
I was also in the same box.
So we got another exemplary here.
Yes.
Ivan?
I didn't do it because my book got lost in the mail. Really, it did. So
Your
sorry.
dog ate it? That's usually that one.
Your dog?
And my dog chewed the book up, yeah. John, where you at?
right underneath the R and pragmatic.
Oh, right there, right there? I'm losing it. Okay. Everything, one of my things are dying. And where are you at?
Exemplary follower.
You're exemplary. See, they got one there. And Mahal,
I was very close to middle. I was like a little bit.
I can't do
this
it.
way and a little bit up. Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay. So we got over on the exemplary side. You made it. By an inch. I'm in an inch. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So those are his. Those are Kelly's breakdown from exemplary. Well, using the things from active to passive, and then the independent critical thinking versus the dependent uncritical thinking. And then ask us to see where we are coming into there. For a little descriptives on those, let's just start in the yellow and work our way around. Actively engaged, applying talents to benefit the group, demonstrate competence in critical path activities, initiate and increasing their value to the organization, seek out organizations aligned with their personal dream. And then to the alienated followers, headstrong and lacking judgment, troublesome, cynical, or negative, chip on their shoulder, not a team player. And then the passive followers, puts it in their time but little else, requires inordinate amount of supervision, and it follows the crowd. Versus the conformist followers, lack their own ideas. Read it over here better. Obsequious and self-deprecating, unwilling to take an unpopular position, compromising their family's needs. And then in the center they have this pragmatic, I like this guy here, this pragmatist followers. They're plays political games, maximizes self-interest, averse to risk, and better safe than sorry. Now it's interesting, I mean, I always have a little bit different idea of what the alienated followers are all about, but to me it was more like for some reason you were cut out of the decision-making process and still required to be doing certain things. So you kind of do them, but you also do your own thing, and you just kind of put up with what's going on down. A little bit of passiveness in it, but it's more than that. A little case study. The organization that I was with in the Philippines had plurality of leadership. So it was the first among equals was the chair, and it was composed of expatriates and Filipinos, the board. And the headquarters was here in the States. And those people really called the shots for what would happen on the various fields. And there were certain things going on in the Philippine field that they did not like. And that resulted, a couple of things were one of them was advanced education. And what happened was then they decided from the US side that they would pull all the leadership out and replace that leadership. And they also brought in somebody from the state side here to head up that Philippine field at that point. Well, because it was not your full-time job per se, all of us had work, and we were in Ifugao, and other people were in other tribal groups working. So we kind of went back and did those type of things, and then, just kind of continued on. So that's why I'd call it kind of an alienated follower. So all of us get put into these type of situations somewhere along the life when it just happens, okay? Because we all don't become exemplary followers forever, even if we would like to. Situations happen, and you get pushed into one of these categories. Or you just conform, or you become pragmatist, or whatever you do, passive, or whatever you do. So for that reason, I think his breakdown is helpful to be able to look at it and then ask us in whatever situation we're looking at it through, what lens we looked at it through, where do we end up on this thing? Because once we know where we are, then you can start to say how I should be acting, or does this mean then I should be leaving the organization? See? And that's, might mean that. Might mean that. Or do I stay and I just put in time, What do we do here? So that helps you to see where you are, and then what are the possibilities, how long do you want to put up with it, and will there be a leadership change that might bring change? Once they made that leadership change in the Philippines, man, that was like anathema, It was like war. Just ended up in a war, basically. Bringing in an outsider who didn't know the situation, but was expected to take over and do the leadership role. He had a terrible time. Terrible time. All right, so now, what is an exemplary follower for an Asian? Where does the Asian go as an exemplary follower? If we look at it cross-culturally.
We're talking about in Indians, they are passive followers. Because it's quite,
So they're over here? Mm-hmm.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
only the people in the higher caste,
Okay.
the leaders, those who are the lower caste, they are all the same followers.
So passive followers would be, if we would switch around the terminology, these would be the exemplary followers in India.
Right.
You just messed up the whole chart, you know that.
Well, we're more like, I mean, it's kind of like when Jesus asked Asians to follow him, which he does. I think we end up to be more, we have to convert from, like a lot of us like to retreat, or we deal with stress by fleeing,
Yeah.
rather than fighting. This is the psychology coming out here, but it's like, there's less of a zealot
Okay.
influence,
Yeah.
and there's more of a Essenes
Mhm.
influence. And so, these scenes like to retreat, they did their own thing. And same with the Pharisees did kind of the same thing, but they kind of, maybe they're more alienated followers or conformist followers, but they actually,
Yeah.
they dealt with it by, creating their own set of things.
Mm.
But the Herodians actually, they're the more pragmatist followers, they play the political games.
Okay.
So I think the Asians, we have, you had a picture of Tiananmen Square in '89, where there was a little zealot movement going on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that got really suppressed really quickly. But I think for Asians, we tend to kind of go with the flow and just try to benefit from, like most fishermen. If we run out of fish over here, we're going to stop and try this other place.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to complain. We're just going to try something.
Just
We're not trying to reap the benefits from whatever's there.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call that. But, maybe pragmatism. Maybe the Chinese are a little more pragmatist nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to Africa. We've been to India. We've messed up the chart. We're going to.
Yeah, I think present, like I said, the conformist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those conformists would be the exemplary
Yeah.
followers. Yeah.
Because of the nature of the
Mhm.
condition.
Yeah.
So we just pull back and, okay, run the show.
Yeah.
We'll watch.
Go with the show. Yeah. So do those conformists have any power at all to try to bring change from the tribalism aspect of it? Try to get out of that.
I think because of the fear of the repercussion, a lot of them are not willing to. Because I think some of them cannot handle the consequences.
Yeah.
Others don't have even something to stake. There's nothing at stake.
Yeah.
So okay, we're not
Yeah.
bothered about it. And those who would venture cannot handle the consequences. You cannot lose your job. Where else do you go?
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah.
Let's pull back.
We just
And the
need.
people in the village. What do I have to lose?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. So why bother? So we just stay aloof.
Hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we have succeeded in messing up this chart really, really well. That's good. That's what you want to do. Because exemplary followers are not necessarily in that category when we start moving this around the world. And that's where we got to find out where they are. And that starts to tell you what's going to, just what he said there. David said that just let it go. What are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. Just live with it. Doesn't help for bringing change around a lot, so. All right. When we consider that any test instrument, you got to look at where's it happening? What generation are we talking about? Are we talking male, female? And what are the government issues that are going on there and the structure that is using its power in various ways? How's that set up and how is that influencing leadership and followership?
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.